Hey there, so before I get into the chapters, I just wanted to show you really quickly. This is the space I'm filling in. As you can see, there's no laptop, no other device, no notes, nothing, just me, my voice, and this paper here. This is chapter outline, just to help me remember the chapter order. I'm not reading off a script or using any devices. Everything I'm about to say is based on what I learned and remembered from the course, and to challenge myself a bit, and really show that I've understood the material. I've decided to record all the chapters in one go, back to back, no cuts, no edits, just straight through. Alright, let's get started with chapter 1. Okay, so chapter 1, what did I learn? Sociology. It's basically like the study of people and how we live together in society. Not just one person, but like groups and how we behave, right? One thing that stood out to me was this idea called sociological imagination. It's like when something happens in your life, you don't just see it as personal, but also part of a bigger social thing. Like for example, if say someone loses their job, we may think, oh, maybe they didn't work hard enough, but sociology says, wait a minute, maybe it's also about the economy or how companies are laying people off. So it's both personal and social. What else? Oh yeah, social institutions. There's are like big parts of society that can guide our lives, like family, school, religion, even the government. They are just always there. We don't think about them much, but they really shape what we do and how we act. There's also this thing about sociology being scientific, which surprised me. Like sociologists actually do research and use methods, not just opinions. They collect data, test stuff. It's more scientists than I thought. Okay, and the three main series super important. So the first one is functionalism. It's like seeing society as a machine or a body. Every part has a job, like family teaches you values, school gives a knowledge, stuff like that. Then we got conflict theory, which is more like power and inequality, like the rich versus the poor, or one group having more privilege than another. It sees society as always having some like kind of struggle. And the third one is symbolic interreactionism, kind of a long term, but it's about small stuff, like how people talk to each other, body language, symbols like how a thumbs up means something, or how we understand roles like student or teacher. One last thing, sociology really started during the Industrial Revolution. When cities were growing, factories pumping up, families changing, people like August Comte, Karl Marx, and Max Weber, they were like the OG sociologists. They wanted to understand what was going on. So yeah, this chapter helped me see that life is not just about me. There are big forces around us. Society, culture, class, and sociology help us kind of make sense of it all. Alright, so chapter 3, okay. Culture. Let's see. So when I think of culture, I used to think of like food, music, holidays, stuff like that. But this chapter helped me realize that culture is way more than that. Culture is like all the stuff we learn from society. It's our values, our language, what we think is normal or weird, right? It's like the software of human life. It runs in the background but controls a lot. There's this idea of material culture and non-material culture. Material culture is like the physical things we make, clothes, phones, buildings. Non-material culture is more like ideas, beliefs, rules like don't talk loud in class or respect elders, that kind of stuff. Oh, and culture norms. That's a big one. So norms are like the unwritten rules. You don't always notice them, but if someone breaks them, it feels awkward. Like if someone stands super close to you in line, you just feel weird. That's norm. Then there's a value. Values are like what we believe is important. For example, in Canada, we really value freedom and equality, right? But other cultures may value obedience or tradition more. There's also this thing about symbols and language, like a symbol could be a flag, a cross, or even like a peace sign. It means something, even if it's just a picture. And language is honestly huge. Without language, we couldn't even pass on culture. Oh, and culture shock. That part was kinda interesting. It's like when you go somewhere new and stuff is just totally different and uncomfortable. Like when I first came to Canada, I thought people were too polite. It feel fake. But now I get it. It's just culture. There's also this idea of ethnocentrism, which is when you think your culture is the best, and then there's cultural relativism, which is more about trying to understand other culture on their own terms, not judging them with your own standards. So one big takeaway for me was culture is not just about what we wear or eat, it's how we think and how we live, what we believe. It shapes us way more than we realize. And every society has culture, even subcultures like grunts, hip-hop fans, church communities. They all have their own little rules, slang, and style. That's culture too. So yeah, culture is everywhere, and now I kind of see it differently. Okay, so chapter 5, socialization. This one actually made me think a lot. So socialization is basically how we learn to be a human, like how we learn what's normal, what's expected, how to act. It's not something we are born with. We learn it from other people. There's this idea of agents of socialization, which just means the people or things that teach us how to behave. The big ones are family, schools, peers, media, religion. Like your family teaches you how to speak, eat, show manners, stuff like that. But your friends may teach you what's cool or what's embarrassing. Oh, and they talk about primary versus secondary socialization. So primary is your early life, like when you're a baby or kid, mostly shaped by family. Secondary comes later, like at school, at work, in sports, teams, stuff like that. I also remember this idea of the self and how it develops. Charles Cooley had this concept called looking glass self. It's kinda poetic. He said, we see ourselves based on how we think others see us. Like, if people treat you like you are smart, you may start thinking you are smart. But if they treat you like a joke, you may see yourself that way too. Then there's George Herbert Mead. He talks about the T and the me, the I and the me. I is like the spontaneous, creative side, and me is the social side that's shaped by rules and others' expectations. We need both to function in society. And re-socialization. That's when you have to unlearn old behaviors and learn new ones. Like when someone joins the army or goes to prison, or even moves to a totally different culture, your whole identity gets reshaped. Some places are called total institutions, like prisons or military boot camps, where every part of your life is controlled. It's like of intense. Honestly, this chapter made me realize how much of me was shaped by other people. Like I thought I was just being myself, but actually I've been socialized my whole life. So yeah, socialization is not just something that happens when you are a kid. It's lifelong. We are always learning new rules, adapting to new situations, and sociology helps explain how and why that happens. Alright, chapter 10, Global and Social Inequality. This one honestly was kinda heavy, like it made me think about how unfair the world can be sometimes. So let's start with the basics. Inequality is when people don't have the same access to things like money, education, healthcare, even safety. And it's not just about one person having more than another, it's like built into society. There are two kinds of inequality that this chapter focuses on: global inequality and social inequality. Global inequality is about how different countries are at different levels of wealth and development. So, for example, countries like Canada or Japan have high standards of living, but places like Haiti or parts of sub-Saharan Africa may struggle with poverty, education, and basic resources. One thing they mention is GDP per capita and the Human Development Index. There are ways to measure a country's well-being. But numbers don't tell the whole story. Like even rich countries still have inequality inside them. And that's where social inequality comes in. It's more like the difference within society, like how in Canada some people live in luxury while others struggle just to pay rent or eat. There's also something called social stratification, which means society is layered kind of like a cake. People are sorted into different classes: upper, middle, working, poor. And these classes affect everything: your job options, how people treat you, even how long you live. The book also talks about different systems of stratification, like the caste system in India, where your social status is fixed at birth, or the class system, which is more flexible but still not that easy to move up. They use the term social mobility, which means how much you can move up or down in the society hierarchy. In theory, if you work hard, you should succeed, but in reality, it's not that simple. Things like race, gender, and where you are born still matter a lot. There's also this idea of globalization, how the world is more connected now. That's great in some ways, but it also creates new inequalities, especially between rich corporations and poor workers in developing countries. Oh, and they brought up feminization of poverty. That means more and more women, especially single moms, are the ones experiencing poverty. That really stuck with me. So yeah, this chapter kinda opened my eyes to how deep inequality goes. It's not just about money, it's about opportunity, respect, and fairness. Alright, so chapters 14 to 19. Yeah, that's a lot, but they all connect around one big idea: social institutions. So what's social institutions? Again, it's like these big organized systems in society that help things run smoothly. They are not physical places, they are more like structures or patterns that guide how we live. Let's start with education. We think of school as just a place to learn math and stuff, right? But sociology says it's also about socializing people, like learning rules, discipline, authority. There's something called the hidden circularism, curriculum. Yeah, curriculum. The stuff schools teach that not in the textbook, like showing up on time, raising your hand, obeying teachers. It trains you for the workplace, basically. Oh, and schools can also reinforce inequality. Like kids from rich families usually get better schools, more support, more chances to succeed. It's not always fair. Then there's religion. There's one what's interesting. Religion isn't just personal. It's a major social force. Emily Durkheim called it a source of social cohesion. It brings people together. But Karl Marx was like, nah, it's a bit of the masses. It has a way to keep people passive. Sociology doesn't see religion as good or bad. It just looks at how it works in society, like how it gives people meaning, create norms, and sometimes even cause conflict. Then we move on to family. There's one huge we all come from some kind of family, but families can look very different. There's nuclear families, extended families, single parent families, chosen families, and they all do different things. The chapter talked about how family teaches us our first values. This is called primary socialization, like how to talk, behave, show love, or deal with problems. But families can also reflect or reproduce inequalities like traditional gender roles or uneven distribution of labor at home. Okay, next is government or the politics. So governments are there to make laws and maintain order. But different societies have different systems. Democracy, authoritarianism, monarchy, all that. There was also something called power and authority. Max Weber broke it down into 3 types: traditional authority like kings, charismatic authority like someone with personal magnetism, maybe a cult leader, and rational legal authority like elected leaders in democracy. Then we have the economy. Basically, how goods and services are produced and exchanged. The chapter talks about capitalism or socialism. Capitalism is all about private ownership and competition, while socialism focuses more on inequality and public ownership. Both systems have pros and cons. Like capitalism encourages innovation, but can cause inequality. Socialism aims for fairness, but sometimes it lacks efficiency. It's complicated. And finally, health and medicine. This chapter was kind of eye-opening. Health isn't just biology, it's social. Like people in lower classes often have worse health because of stress, poor health, and limited access to care. There's also something called the medicalization of society. That's when normal life stuff like aging or sadness gets treated like a medical problem, like turning every emotion into a diagnosis. So yeah, social institutions are powerful. They shape how we live, how we think, and even what we believe is normal. And the crazy thing is, we don't even notice them most of the time. Okay, so chapter 20, populations and the environment. Yeah, this one feels a bit different. Less about people's behavior and more about like big picture stuff, but it's all connected. So first off, population. It's not just about how many people are born or die. It's about the patterns, like where people live, how fast populations grow, and how that affects the world. There's this thing called demography, which is the study of population. I didn't know that word before. Demographics look at stuff like birth rates, death rates, migration, all those numbers that tell us how a society is changing. And one concept I remember is population pyramid. It's this graph that shows the age and sex structure of a population. If you look at it, you can tell if a country is growing fast, shrinking, or staying stable, kind of like a health check for a country. There's also something called the Malthusian theory. This guy, Thomas Malthus, believes that population grows faster than food supply, that eventually will run out of resources. Pretty scary, but like modern thinkers argue, we've found ways to increase food production. So maybe he was partly wrong, partly right. And urbanization. That's when more and more people move to cities, which is happening a lot around the world. But it creates challenges like overcrowding, pollution, housing shortages, traffic, and all that. Then there's the environment part. Sociology looks at the environment not just as nature, but as something deeply connected to society, like the choices we make, what we consume, how we build cities, how we use resources, all of that impacts the planet. There's the term environmental racism. It means that environmental problems like pollution, toxic waste dumps, lack of clean water often affect poor communities or communities of color more than others. That really shocked me. I never thought about pollution as a social issue, but it is. Another big idea was the tragedy of the commons. That's when people all use shared resources like air, water, or fish in the ocean, and everyone thinks one more wouldn't hurt. But when everyone does that, it destroys the resources. It's like no one wants to take responsibility because it's shared. So yeah, this chapter made me realize that population and environmental problems aren't just science problems, they are social problems too. They come from how we live, how we organize society, and the values we hold. And honestly, it kind of made me think about my own habits, like how much I consume, visit, drive, and what kind of world we are living for the next generation. No Chapter 21, Social Movements and Social Change. Honestly, this one was kinda inspiring. So social change is basically when society shifts, like big changes in values, norms, technology, or institutions. And a lot of that happens because people push for it. That's where social movements come in. They are organized efforts by people to bring about or resist change, like civil rights, feminism, climate action, and even anti-mask protest. Those are all social movements. There are different types too. There's reform movements, which want to fix part of society, like improving education or healthcare. Then there's revolutionary movements, which want to totally change the system, like overthrowing a government. There's also resistance movements, which try to stop change, like groups who oppose immigration or same-sex marriage, and religious movements that aim to change people's lives spiritually or morally. One model that stuck with me was the stages of a movement. It starts with emergence, where people notice a problem. Then they get organized. Then like forming groups and leaders, and finally, either success, failure, or decline. Another interesting point was the relative deprivation theory. It's the idea that people join movements not necessarily when they are at their worst, but when they expect more and feel they are being denied something, like we deserve better. And of course, technology has totally changing social movements. Social media makes it easier to mobilize people, share ideas, and organize protests. But it can also cause selectivism, where people click but don't really act. Also, the chapter talks about how social change isn't always loud or sudden. Sometimes it's slow, like how gender roles are changing over decades. Other times it's fast, like during revolutions or pandemics. One last thing I found cool: collective behavior. That's like what happens in big groups. Mobs, facts is not always logical, but it shows how powerful crowds can be. People act differently when they are part of a group. So yeah, this chapter reminded me that real people make change happen. It starts small, someone notices something wrong. Then more people join, and together they shift history. Thank you very much, and have a good day. That's all my chapter looking in the mirror check.